NECA 1987 cartoon TMNT figures we hope to see in 2021. Part 3, we're looking for a few good cartoon mutants. Hi everybody, welcome to SpeekyGeeky. As always, I am Mr.Geek-E. Today, we are going to be discussing NECA's Fred Wolf 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon toy line. If you already tuned in for part 1 and 2 of this series, congrats on being all caught up, and also a big pat on the back for taking the time to check those out. If you haven't, we got you covered, and we'll conveniently plop that link in for you right here, as well as at the end of this video. As of this writing, we haven't had any new bombshell revelations from NECA since the last video, but as so often happens, if any new reveals occur between now and when this comes out, we'll make sure to include a note in the description. We did have a bit of a better look at both the oversized Muck Man, or rather post-mutation Garson Grunge, and his pal, Joe Junkie, who would later become known in his mutant form as Joe Eyeball, as well as a closer look at the oversized Mondo Gecko and Kerma. A minor thing to note with the Muck Man Tease, and this could very well be us being overly hopeful, is that if you look closely at the Technodrome in the background, it seems almost as if that isn't an image at all, but perhaps a prototype? Again, that could just be our eyes playing tricks on us into seeing what we want, but NECA has teased that vehicles and playsets aren't out of the question. And with Mondo coming with that incredibly detailed skateboard, we wonder if indeed it's just a case of our eternal optimism, or perhaps priming the vehicle landscape for a much bigger reveal. Again, still nothing new on Irma, but that's not going to keep us from saying her name a few more times in hopes of perhaps Beetlejuicing her. Nope, try a different word. Sounds gross. Okay, second try. Conjuring her in Beetlejuice fashion. Still not great, and sounds a bit Yojimbo-esque, but let's call that a work in progress. The point is, Irma, the fans want her, so if anyone from NECA happens to be listening, we implore you, please make sure production of her meets the fan demand. Okay, Soapbox rant ended. For in-depth coverage of all characters that have been released so far, we strongly encourage you to check out part 1 and 2 of the series, as we cover those in great detail there. And with that said, we have one more question, specifically for you. You? Yes, you. Who else would we be talking to? Not to put you on the spot, so certainly take a minute to think about your answer and then let us know in the comments below. But here's the question to mull before we dig right into our new picks. Okay, here's what we'd like to know for you turtle fans out there. Considering we don't have any new characters this week for our nerd out moment, we don't want to incur a missed opportunity to embrace our nerddom here, and we'll call this new segment our SpeekyGeeky fan-facing patent-pending Pondering. With the success of NECA's Fred Wolf animated 2-packs, if NECA suddenly had the license to create characters in that animated fashion that previously were only seen in Playmate's original toy line, is that something you as a fan would like to see? For a reference here, we are talking about characters like Sergeant Bananas, Panda Kahn, King Lionheart, Scratch, Hotspot, Fugitoid, Pizza Face, Worm, amongst many others. And a surprise follow-up question, which of these original toy line specific characters, who never actually appeared in the Fred Wolf cartoon, tops your list for who you would like to see made in that style? We know you may have many, but for the sake of this question, we are just asking for the one you want the most. We at SpeekyGeeky could ask these questions all day long, and have quite a few more that we hope to include in future episodes. So, if you would like us to pose more of these types of questions, we'd love to hear your input on that as well. We'll tabulate your answer below by the next episode and let you know which character or characters many of you would like to see. Again, this is just for fun, but you never know. If enough of us make our voices known, today's voting just for shells and giggles could be tomorrow's dream character we get to finally add to our collection. A minor update regarding Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo. We initially were hoping for this character to be paired with Ace Duck, but it was just revealed that Netflix is doing an animated series about Usagi called Samurai Rabbit: The Usagi Chronicles, which, on the one hand, is fantastic and we cannot wait, but on the other, this may explain some of the legal red tape toward getting Usagi into the NECA line. Our hope is that because the toy line is in a likeness of Usagi specifically based on the original cartoon series, that this might be a workaround. So in the meantime, we'll keep our fingers crossed and our plastic lucky rabbit's foot, which is what we call our vintage Usagi toy, close by. Like we said before, we still feel his appearance is more a question of when rather than if he'll make it into the line. And with this new series, there might also now be a chance of getting additional figures of him, though perhaps by a different toy company in the not too distant future as well. Okay, now to finally dive into the third part of this continuing video top NECA TMNT toys we want ASAP series. Join Mr.Geek-E, hey, that's me, as he sewer surfs his way through the top 40 NECA classic cartoon figures that we hope to see in 2021. We've covered 12 figures so far, and using a Reptile Rewind, we'll ever so quickly show you those characters. And now that we're all caught up, let's jump right into our third batch of 6 desired characters. Number 1, Lord Dregg. Lord Dregg, a cosmic overlord set on taking over and enslaving the Earth, and a bit of a scenery change, replacing Shredder and Krang, who are now banished to Dimension X, as the core Turtles' main antagonist. While seasons 1 through 8 of the series skewed a bit more slapsticky and lighthearted, after seeing the success of the TMNT live-action movies, as well as demographic contenders at the time, Batman the Animated Series, which was having a runaway success, and Power Rangers, which were in the midst of changing villains at the time, to compete, the TMNT cartoons started to take on a little more grit, and the stakes became a little more real with longer lasting ramifications in their final 2 seasons. While Shredder and Krang were almost always comically destined to fail, Lord Dregg, his ever backstabbing lackey Mung, and his Techno Gang army, who were a group of largely generic looking bug-like alien soldiers with intense army building possibilities, posed legit and lasting consequences to the Turtles. Dregg had a wildly different approach to defeating the Turtles than his villainous predecessor as well. While Shredder embraced a more madcap, wily coyote, throw whatever we got at the Turtles and see what sticks approach, Dregg was more methodical and used manipulation and gaslighting to ingratiate himself to the people of Earth, so that his actions against the Turtles seemed like they had an air of legitimacy to them, despite working with the end goal of conquering Earth. Dregg was the first major Shredder replacement, and often pitted the Turtles against a host of villains that forced them to up their game in order to take him and his army of techno baddies down. There are a handful of iterations of Dregg that would be fun to see get the toy treatment. One in particular would be a simple additional head treatment from when Dregg absorbed the mental strength of Krang, as well as the physical strength of the second mutation Turtles, to make him, at least for a time, the most powerful and intelligent being in the universe. Another obvious variant that would be fun to see with this character is a version where he is wearing the Morphogenesis exoskeleton. No, I'm not just suggesting that variant because of its fun to say name. The Morphogenesis exoskeleton was a suit made out of the absorbed combined strength of 5 very powerful aliens. It's rather creepy when you think about it for too long. Hints of Mr. Burns' See My Vest song come to mind, but it was one cool looking Morphogenesis exoskeleton if we ever did see one. Number 2, Mung. Mung was to Lord Dregg as Krang was to Shredder, in that to say they had a friendship would be a gross overstatement. They had shared goals of taking over the planet, but drifted apart as Dregg became more focused on exterminating the Turtles and lost sight of the bigger picture. Their relationship was more of convenience until it wasn't. And then, even though this was never confirmed as it happened off screen, once Dregg got all he wanted from Mung, he used Mung's own inventions to essentially eat him alive. So, you know, just a mildly different relationship than Shredder had with Krang. Number 3, Zack, the 5th Turtle. Bring on the humans. Or rather, bring on the humans dressed as turtles. One of the characters that largely has been forgotten by history, but is still front and center in our mind, is a character designed as an outlet toward allowing children watching at home to feel like they were safely transported directly into the action of the cartoon adventures, which, consequently, because of how gritty the show eventually became, it may also explain why he doesn't make an appearance after season 7. I am, of course, talking about none other than Zack, the unofficial 5th Turtle, complete with his homemade mask and turtle costume. He skirted all Child Protective Service standards and logic to stand shell the homemade shell with our fearless foursome on numerous occasions. Oh, the 80s. What a magical time to be a kid. Number 4, Smash, the Crooked Turtle Gang leader. Smash, the Cobra Kai-esque leader of the Crooked Turtle Gang, would be a natural toy pairing with Zack to capture the stark juxtaposition between these two human characters that choose to dress as turtles. While Zack dons his makeshift costume to help stop crime alongside the turtles, Smash did so at the direction of Shredder to commit it. Part of what made the original cartoon series so fun was the general defiance of logic that almost felt similar at times to the campy Batman series from 1966, where plot mechanisms seemed to be plucked straight out of thin air just because the writers thought it might be fun to see on screen. The idea of Smash and his slash for cash gym acolytes turned Crooked Turtle Gang felt a bit like that, where we're guessing one of the writers saw Karate Kid and thought out loud at one of the writers' sessions, you know what might be fun? Having the Turtles face off against John Kreese and his sweep the leg minions. To which another writer must have said, yes, I was thinking the same thing. And boom, an unofficial Turtles versus Cobra Kai mashup took place. Though Smash and his Crooked Turtle Gang were only featured in the one episode from Season 2's Return of the Shredder, their unique appearance that had hints of the original Mirage Turtles wearing only red bandanas left a lasting impression all these years later. One additional note here, just because we paired Smash with Zack does not in any way mean we don't want an army builder of the Crooked Turtle Gang. Quite the opposite. In fact, you'll want to keep your eyes peeled for an upcoming episode where we'll cover this exact topic. Number 5 and 6, Tokka and Rahzar. Yes, Tokka and Rahzar did indeed appear in the animated cartoon series, if only for one episode in Season 7 called Dirk Savage, Mutant Hunter, and their looks and personalities couldn't have been more different than their film representation. Well, okay, maybe Tokka was a bit similar to his film version in terms of appearance, but both he and Rahzar could and did engage in somewhat intelligent banter in between stuffing their respective faces due to their insatiable appetites. In the film, the characters were newly born mutants that had the mutation process sped up, so they still remained intellectually infantile. But in the cartoon, it is referenced that they mutated when Shredder released mutagen at the zoo. But seeing as Shredder wasn't always the most creative, this could have been one of multiple times. So either Tokka and Rahzar are as old as Bebop and Rocksteady, or newer mutants, the same relative age of Groundchuck and Dirtbag. Another thing to note about the episode itself was that it was always one of our favorites because of how mutant heavy it was. In addition to Tokka and Rahzar making their singular appearance, we also were reunited with the Punk Frogs, Mondo Gecko, and a handful of additional one-time only mutant characters who Dirk was hunting. These additional mutants of a ram, a stork, a giraffe, and a canary weren't given names, but they were still fun to see. As seems to be a recurring theme with these videos, we'll leave off with giving a sly nod to NECA that it might be fun to bring in some of these additional unnamed mutants who grace the series, if only for a brief moment, as a way to army build towards fleshing out this plastic mythos as much as possible. Well, there it is, our shell of a fun list that concludes part 3 of our top hopes for the 2021 NECA Fred Wolf animated series, which we seriously need to shorten that name, or at the very least, make it less tongue-twisty. But there is still reason to celebrate. Come on, another shell pun? This is just getting lazy now. Sorry, let me start that again. But there is still one reason to celebrate, because part 4 will be dropping any day now. So make sure to stay tuned to SpeekyGeeky's YouTube for more dedicated turtle time. We imagine you'll have some characters that top your list too, so feel free to join the conversation in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to sub up, give the video a like, and share with anyone you know who appreciates these types of videos. Also, make sure to check out the description for additional links that lead to some similar expanded content we think you'll also probably enjoy quite a bit. You realize you could have gone anywhere and you chose to nerd out with us, and we appreciate that. So, as always, I am Mr. Geek-E, and until next week, Turtle Speaky, keep it geeky, folks.